Hi, I'm New Mexico attorney Nadia Cabrera Mazio, and today we're talking about how to protect your personal assets as a farmer or rancher. Many people think that the liability protection is automatic. They can just create an LLC or corporation and be done with it. That is not how it works. Whether you have an LLC or corporation, there are certain formalities or hoops that you have to jump through in order to keep that liability shield strong. The liability shield, or corporate veil, as it's sometimes called, must be actively maintained through proper business practices. It is up to you as the business owner whether your liability shield is made out of steel or aluminum foil. The main things you have to do to keep a liability shield strong start with separation of finances and assets between you personally and your business. If you're commingling personal and business money, you're using those business funds for personal expenses, then that's a sure sign to the court or a creditor or whoever is looking into this that you are not following those business practices and that you're just having this kind of shell corporation to try to protect yourself instead of truly giving it the deference that it deserves as its own legal entity. Another heavy factor that is going to be worth a lot is how you're handling those business funds. Undercapitalization happens when the business does not have enough money to stand on its own 2 feet. It does not have enough money to continue operating. If that's true and that's a result of the market and just business is slow and you truly don't have enough money, you can bankroll it with your personal funds and that's not going to count against you. But if the business did have that money and you took it all out of the business and put it in your personal account so that it couldn't be used for business purchases, then that's a problem. Another factor is to document major business decisions. Of course, have bylaws and an operating agreement and actually do what they say. You should be able to know where those are and generally what they say. And when things change and your practices aren't reflecting the policies that you set out in these governing documents, you need to update those documents. Carrying proper insurance is also a major factor. Depending on your industry, whether it's very high risk or not, you might be able to get away with not having insurance. But for something like food sales, which is a very high risk industry, it would be madness not to have insurance. So if you don't have insurance in that case, it's also a sign that you're not following these proper business practices and that a creditor might be able to dip into your personal pocket to pay off business debts. Another factor that a lot of people tend to forget about is putting your title and the company name when you're signing documents. Otherwise, it just makes things messier if there is a dispute. It doesn't necessarily mean that you will be personally responsible, but it absolutely opens that door and will require a bunch of legal arguments if things get messy. And finally, issuing corporate stock. So if you choose a corporation as your entity type versus an LLC, then you're going to have to follow even more formalities. Like, a lot of these things are really important for keeping that liability shield strong, but they're not written into the law. For corporations, however, a lot of these factors are written into the law. So not only are they important to maintain that liability protection, but for corporations, they are absolutely important to maintain the legality of the corporation to begin with. These are all of the hoops that you have to jump through to maintain that strong liability protection with your business, whether you choose an LLC or corporation. A good rule of thumb is to imagine that somebody else owned the business. What hoops would you have to jump through in order to do business and transact with that person or with that business? Make yourself jump through those same hoops in your own business. I created a self-assessment to gauge the legal health of your business. It's linked below and you can go through all of those factors and see where you're at and see how you improve over time. Stay tuned for more from the Farm and Ranch Legal Series.